This week, we have a very special guest, Aimee Jensen from Aimee's Edventures, and she is sharing about her journey to hitting the first 2 TPT milestones in 3 years' time from starting her store to today. She has left the classroom. Her husband now also works with her full-time, and she's just seen enormous amount of success in her TPT business. And she's here to share what she attributes that success to, what that journey has looked like for her so far, and just a lot of really fun conversation. So I want you guys to meet Aimee. Hey, Aimee, how are you?
I'm doing great, thanks. I'm happy to be here. How are you?
I'm so glad that you're here. Thrilled that you're here, actually. We did kind of an open call for the podcast and said, I want to talk to people who have some experience on TPT, who are seasoned. And one of the things that stuck out to me about your response was that you hit the first 2 milestones in 3 years.
Yeah.
And that's not a very normal, typical experience. And so I'm
Yeah.
so interested in hearing about your TPT journey, what that's looked like for you, and just kind of learning more about you. So you want to start by telling everybody just a little bit about yourself, your TPT journey, and kind of what led you to start selling on TPT?
Yeah. So my name is Aimee Jensen, and I'm a full-time curriculum and content creator from Utah. I'm a newly married Army wife. We've been married for 2 months now, and in my spare time, I love to do graphic design work and read. So my TPT story really goes back to when I was 7 years old. I was that little girl turning the playroom into a classroom, and I taught myself how to use PowerPoint, and I would create little lessons and make my siblings sit down and do them with me. I just always wanted to be a teacher, and I just thought it was super fun. So when I started my teaching career in 2020, I was finishing my last year of college, and I had a few credits there, and then I was also the full-time teacher on record for a 4th grade class with 32 kids, and it was in the middle of a pandemic, and I poured my heart and soul into everything I did. I spent countless hours into making everything perfect for my students. I just wanted them to have a great year, but I was working 12-hour work days, nights, weekends, and holidays. So my typical schedule was wake up at 7, go to school. And the first year, because I was spending so many hours late after school trying to get my classroom ready, I was typically the only one in the building, so I kind of got a little bit afraid, and I would just start using my Instagram stories to kind of pretend I had a friend to talk to while I was setting everything up. And that kind of created this community that I had, because that was a time where education was something that wasn't like anything anyone had ever seen before. So I was learning from so many other teachers on Instagram about how to do lessons online and things like that. So fast forward to the next year, my Instagram had picked up a little bit, so I would work from 7 to my contract hours at 3, and then I would record videos until about 7 o'clock at night, and then come home, make worksheets because I needed them. I just had textbooks that the school had given me, and I don't know if anyone has ever successfully been able to just teach a group of 8-year-olds with a textbook all day long. So I would come up with other little activities that we could do throughout the day, and then because it was created anyway, I was I'm just going to put it on TPT, and my videos were about showing people how I was using them. So that is how my story started, and I think it's because of those crazy work hours that I was able to hit those milestones really quickly, and I'm really grateful for that, because now my husband actually works full-time with me. I left the classroom last year so I can just do this because it brings me so much joy. It's been a much healthier work-life relationship, and I'm not so burnt out every day.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So much that you mentioned there that I really want to talk about. A couple of things, and some of this we can wait till later, but I would love at some point during this podcast to talk about, you said your husband works with you full time now,
Yes.
to talk
Yeah.
about that dynamic, because that's really interesting. Let's kind of start with this. First, I think it's really important for people who are listening to hear, yeah, you hit the milestones really fast, but like you said, you were working 12-hour days and
Yes.
you didn't have kids at the time, right? No kids
No.
in home, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think it's important for people to hear, it takes a lot of work to
Mhm.
hit those milestones that fast, that this was not something that you just kind of lucked into.
Right.
This was a lot of really long hours. Tell me, do you think that if you hadn't had social media, because it sounds to me like there was a really sweet spot in there where you had the social media, you were navigating kind of unprecedented times, and other teachers were really curious how other teachers are navigating similar situations. Do you think that if you hadn't had social media, that it would have taken off as quickly as it did?
Yes, because so my first product was actually a Bitmoji classroom that I learned how to create, and like I did a Q&A box before I jumped on here and just asked like what people wanted me to talk about on the podcast, and they said like what was the one thing that like you did, and then everything else just kind of took off, and that was just not my story at all. But I did find some things that other people hadn't learned how to do yet that kind of helped me bump to the top a little bit. Like the Bitmoji classrooms were really successful. I didn't know how to like go back and check to see if I had made anything, and I never got an email from TPT, so I was like, oh man, that was such a waste of time. But then I went back like 2 months after I had posted it, and I realized they were all going to like the promotions tab in my email, and then I found out it actually had made quite a bit of money. And I was technically a contracted teacher that first year, but I was getting half of the salary because I was like 3 months away from finishing college. So I think I had like $700 in my bank account, and so that took off really quickly, and that was great because I was like, oh, I don't have to worry so much about gas this month.
Yeah.
And then but after that, like I only made $11 the next month because I didn't know how to keep it going like that. And it's the same with social media. Like I have had quite a few videos go viral, and everyone thinks that like the first one that did go viral on TikTok, I actually was interviewed for like some news websites like Fox News and ABC and Upworthy, like some really cool opportunities, and people are like, oh, that must have been like where everything fell into place for you. And I'm not to say that didn't help at all, because it definitely did, but it's like a quick little burst of growth, and then you have to pivot and figure out, okay, how can I either do that again, or how can I, like that video didn't have anything to do with TPT. It was about how I teach fairness using band-aids to elementary kids. So it wasn't translating into sales. So yes, I had like a big reach, but it wasn't really benefiting me in any way other than I got these really cool opportunities that I am grateful for. But I also joined like Facebook pages, seeing like how other people were marketing their TPT, and your page was one of them. That's how I found out about this podcast opportunity. But it just really helped me connect with other people, know what teachers were looking for in their classrooms, and also helped me kind of talk about my products in a way that I wouldn't have been able to do otherwise.
Yeah, I love that. So lots of factors at play. It wasn't just like one thing that helped to drive
Yeah.
all of your success. There was a lot of learning and a lot of growing in a very short amount of time. And there was no doubt a lot of energy that you were putting into this. So at what point were you like, okay, because it's been 3 years now.
Yeah.
At what point were you like, okay, I'm leaving the classroom. My husband's going to do this with me full time. Like, how did that all work?
So the point that I decided to leave the classroom was last year. Work had become toxic for me because I had all of the social media things going on. My school knew about it because I had their permission to record my videos. I tried to honor never doing that during my contract hours. I always did it after, but I would like pack a bag of like 6 different outfits in a duffel bag, and I'd take it to school on Saturday, and I would go film. So I had to get permission to do that. And because of that, I think people started overestimating what I had the ability to do as only a third year teacher. And I loved being in the classroom and I loved the students, but there were so many behaviors that I was not trained for and didn't have the skill set to be able to handle a full class of really challenging behaviors. I was coming home every day in tears and complaining to my boyfriend at the time, who's now my husband, and I was like, I am just not liking this anymore. I'm not happy. I feel like I'm letting all the kids down every day, even though I'm doing my absolute best. But I also, on top of that, I couldn't print. I had a set number of pages I could print. And like I said, the reason that I was doing all this crazy stuff is just so that I could survive day to day. And I had so many conversations asking for the extra help that I needed. And when I didn't get that, I just decided it was time to walk away because I was making exponentially more doing TPT than I was in the classroom. And it was the best choice for my family. At the time, I didn't know my husband would be working with me, but my dream job has always been just to be a mom. And I wanted a job that I could be at home, and like graphic design brings me so much joy. I was loving TPT. I love that I'm still teaching. So it was just like this dream job, and I just needed a change.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
so
totally.
and then you asked when my husband started working with me. So like I mentioned before, he is in the army, he's in the National Guard, so he has like his army job and then he also has a civilian job. So we got married, and then that first month he was working as a business analyst, and I would sit in on these corporate meetings, which are pretty typical corporate meetings that they're having meetings about the meetings and putting pins in things and always talking about it. And I was like, I don't know how you were doing this all day long. And he wasn't really happy in his job either. So I had scheduled before to go to TPT Forward, and I wanted him to go with me. And so we went, and we had such a great time. That was back in July. And we realized that his skill set and my skill set, we were going to make a really good team. And we already had the finances in play. And we are like, well, we don't have kids or anything right now. And it was a really good time for us to take a risk. So we sat down and looked at our budget, and we're like, okay, we could totally do this. So he has been taking his skills in analytics, which is something that I never looked at before that point because it stressed me out, because I always felt like I'm a perfectionist. So I always felt like every video had to be better than the next, which is just not the reality of social media, because the algorithm changes all the time, and like the littlest things will make your video do better or worse. So he's kind of helping me fine tune a lot of things. But yeah, we're both loving it so far. We just get to hang out at home with our puppy, and life is so much better than it was before.
I love that. And I love to hear that. I love to hear when couples are working together. You know, my husband works from home as well, but he works in a completely different industry. And I've
Fun.
tried on multiple occasions to talk him into coming and working
Yeah.
with me. And he's like, I don't think I would enjoy that. Like, yeah, you know, we have a little bit of a different dynamic. And he's probably right. He probably wouldn't enjoy it. It's very, you know, it's very different from his industry. But I love that. I love everything about it. So let's talk about biggest struggle or biggest hurdle that you've had in growing your TPT business so far.
Yeah, I feel like there have been a lot, and it changes all the time just depending on what season I'm in. But I think right now I'm in the process of refining and updating my products. I almost have 400, and I think the best way to describe it is with an analogy that I heard from Sadie Robertson Huff on her podcast, Oh, That's Good. She talked about when she was younger, every time she ate an apple, she planted a seed in the ground, but she never remembered where she planted the seed so she could go back and take care of it later. So she had all of these seeds, but like there's not like an apple tree in sight or anything. So that's just kind of how I felt about it. Because I have all of these resources, and I feel super confident in some of them that have performed really well on social media that are my best sellers. But I have so many other that I'm like, I feel like I can't even talk about these because I'm not like the most proud of them. Like I think they're still good, but they don't do as well as the other ones. So when my husband came onto my team, he's like, we need to sit down and just refine what you already have, because you have so many good things. Instead of just starting from scratch all the time, like we should really figure out good systems for everything. So at first that was hard because I just love creating, and I was still seeing on TPT all the time everybody else who is posting products daily or new things, and everything looks perfect, and I just compare myself a lot. And I think also TPT Forward was really good for me to go to because I got to actually meet with some of the teachers that I had been following since I was back in college that I really looked up to. And I realized they have a whole team working for them. And I thought they were doing it all on their own. I was doing it mostly on my own. I did hire a virtual assistant for a little bit, and she helped me with some things, but I needed things a certain way. But I also loved doing it. I loved every single part of it. And I was used to working those 12-hour days. So changing my mindset that I didn't need to do that anymore was really tricky at the beginning too. So now we're just in the process of going through and looking at everything with a fine-tooth comb. And I'm so glad we are because, for example, I sell partner cards and I have different sets, and one is a Thanksgiving set. And in the description, I wrote that the cards looked and tasted delicious, when in reality, they're just cards that you print out and laminate for your students. So they do not taste delicious,
Yeah.
but that's just like the ultimate example of what it looks like to clean up after a teacher burnout. Like, it was still fine. People were buying them, but I was like, what is this
Yeah.
description? So I'm really glad that we're doing that now.
That's awesome. Can you talk to me about what has been the biggest game changer for you?
Yeah, so I think back to that social media part of it, I think showing people how to use my resources has helped the most because there's nothing more frustrating when like you get something not even just on TPT, but like you look at something on Amazon, you're like, oh, this is going to be so cool, and you buy it and it comes and you're like, this is great, and then you open it and you're like, I have no idea how to use this. Like there's not instructions, I don't know how to make it look like this picture that I saw that made me want to buy this. And so taking the time to actually show people like this is what it looks like to use this product in your classroom, and I try to make it clear that like my way is not the only way to use a resource, because while I'm creating, I'm trying to think, okay, how could like someone in this grade level use it, or how could someone who can't print use this, or who can only print in black and white and not color use this. But it's a good starting point that they can see, oh, this is like how I could use it, and then they can tweak it to use it in their classroom. Yeah, and then just staying consistent with posting in that marketing strategy, mostly through Instagram, but also branching out to new things like TikTok and Pinterest and things like that. And I just feel like because I've been consistent, that's the biggest thing that has driven the results. It's not just the posting one time and getting really lucky that it does go viral or that there are a lot of comments or things like that. It's just staying consistent that has helped a lot.
Yeah, I love that. So when you're creating these videos to show people how to utilize your product, because I agree, and I think a lot of times we assume that a teacher knows how to use a resource. But I think back to my first year of teaching, and whenever I was purchasing products on TPT that were, basic resources that most people would know how to use, I had no clue how to utilize them in my classroom because I was brand new and I just hadn't been exposed to that type of product before, even though it was really common. And even right now I can see, post pandemic and, in this economy and the teacher burnout state that we're in right now, there are so many new hires, people who are brand new to the teaching industry. And I can see where that would be incredibly helpful to help them feel confident in what they're purchasing, because teachers are feeling a little bit more particular about where they spend their money, where before it was like, it was a $3 risk is just $3, right? But now a $3 risk is, do I really want to spend $3 on that if I don't fully understand how to utilize or implement that within my classroom effectively? And so it's like I'm spending $3, but then I'm also going to have to figure out how to use the resource, which is going to cost me time. So knowing before you purchase exactly how you're going to use that resource in your classroom, I can see where that would be incredibly helpful. Are you utilizing those videos in other ways to take them, and maybe even, are you putting them inside the product itself? Like, do you have videos inside the, oh, really? So tell me about that.
Not like in the product itself, but in the preview. You can do like the video previews on TPT, and I also sell on Etsy too. So I do that. Yeah, I loved what you were saying earlier, because I was a teacher that I was like, okay, I got my degree, but what do all these acronyms mean? Like that's the part they don't really go over in college. And with working with my husband, he was actually homeschooled. So it's really nice to have him there, because with this refining process, I kind of just started using the TPT lingo, and he's like, I don't know what this means. And I feel like even if you sell on TPT, sometimes I'm like, what's a boom card? Like, I don't know. So it's just really helps to simplify what you're doing, because I thought that like having a successful product was using all these cool buzzwords and stuff, but that can just make it more confusing. And just to show a picture of things, like I've been trying to incorporate like more mock-ups, because before my covers they were just like clip art and then like a screenshot of what one page looked like. But now I'm like, if it's a poster, I'm trying to show what those posters look like in a classroom, so that people don't really have to guess or figure it out. I'm just showing them the final product so that they can put it together themselves.
Exactly. I love that. I love that. Talk to me about your work routine and how this works with your husband too. Like obviously y'all work together from home.
Yeah.
So what does a typical day to day look like for you?
My husband loves going to the gym, and it's been really good for me, because sometimes I work out with him, but sometimes I just like get on the treadmill, and while I'm walking on the treadmill, I am posting on my Instagram stories, I'm making Pinterest pins, doing all of those kinds of things. But I'm also moving my body. That was another really hard thing with working those crazy long hour days, was I was only focusing on work. I wasn't focusing on anything else in my life. So my health and my mental health was struggling. So sometimes I just listen to a podcast, but some days, or like music, some days I try to utilize that time though, that I'm like, well, I can just get on my phone and do this. So after the gym, we come back and he starts on his tasks, which is like the analytics and working on product descriptions and optimizing them for SEO. And he helps me we use ManyChat on Instagram. So he's setting up little flows that we can do. And then I have daily tasks I do every day, like posting on my stories or getting a reel ready to go. But I also have certain days set aside for like doing the product refinement and batching my social media, because I'm not a person that gets ready every day. I've never been. So that's why I would go to the school on Saturday, because I actually did my hair and makeup that day. And then I could just change my outfits really quick. And that's still what I like to do. And then I have other days where I get weekly emails set. So it kind of varies day to day, which I really like, but there's still some routine. And then we just track everything with a website called Asana, and it's a task manager. So I can see like what he's working on. He can see what I'm working on. I'm very visual. So it's like a visual way to move your tasks over when you're done and to check off all the little things, which I really like. And then I don't have to always remember like, oh, what day do I send out weekly emails, or what day do I do this? I just have it in the calendar. And then when I move the task over that it's done, it just makes a new one. So it's ready for the next week.
Do you work a set number of hours each day, or is it kind of flexible? Or
we typically work from about like 9 to 5 still. So it's hard too, because with Instagram, like your best time of the day to post always changes too. So I've been working, like we usually stop at 5, but then I get back on at 7 and I post and do things like that. But it's also really nice because I have started going to like physical therapy and things, so I can go in the middle of the day and it's fine. And that's something that I really like about just doing this full time, is that I can go to the bathroom when I want, if anything, and we can take time to sit down and actually eat lunch. It's those little things that are really nice for me during the workday.
yeah, making the snack and working in a different location, I think, was a big one for me when I first left the classroom. Like, I don't feel like sitting at my desk anymore. I'm going to go sit on the couch, or, like where, whatever, just kind of having some freedom and flexibility is huge. Let's talk about what you found to be the most important drivers for success in your business. If you could only do 3 things for your TPT business, what 3 things would you choose, and what would you kick out?
It's a good one. It's hard to pick just 3 things, but if I had to narrow it down, just based on all of the updates I've been doing in the past month, I would say fill out every single part of a TPT listing, because like when you're on the Facebook pages, they're like, make sure you write how many page numbers and make sure you actually have a description for your products, or if it's in a bundle, you mention that. And I was like, oh yeah, I know that. But as I'm going back, I'm like, oh, I didn't put the page numbers. Those silly things, because, or like, this doesn't have a preview, or I just slapped like a watermark over the entire product. No wonder this isn't selling. Like, it's so exciting after you finish that project, especially after you've spent hours and hours on it typically, that you just kind of want to throw it on. You're like, yay, everybody can buy it now. But taking the time to like actually fill out all the spots that TPT has for you is key, I think, in actually converting into those sales. I see things all the time that are like secret hacks that you can do, and my husband and I have talked about this, but we're like, if anyone is ever like trying to sell a secret, it's usually not something that's sustainable. Or so I think just actually doing what TPT gives you is going to be fine. Like, you don't have to do anything extra, which, like, seeing all of those kinds of things on my Instagram, I was like, oh, I'm missing these things that other people must know about. But really, there's no secrets. Like, TPT gives you everything you need to be successful. The second thing would just being consistent in marketing. And then third is actually looking at those analytics, because that's been helping a lot too, that I'm not just throwing darts at a dartboard and hoping that one lands on the bullseye. I actually have some strategy. And then I've also heard in a training that for business that you should look at your income producing activities, or your IPAs, but I try to look at like value producing activities because there are some things that, like I said, I like doing in my business and they make me happy, and they might not be producing the most income, but that doesn't mean they aren't valuable to me because they're making me happy. And I've noticed that a lot of teachers think that they need to do all the things, and I am definitely one of them. And like I had an Amazon storefront I was trying to promote. I was saying yes to every single social media collaboration opportunity, but then I ended up having to give all of that money away to taxes. And I was selling on TPT, my own website, Etsy. I had a lot of balls up in the air, and I just had to take a step back, and maybe I'm a little bit less quick to say yes to a collaboration unless it's something that I actually want to do, because for everything that you're giving time to, it's time that you could be spending on something else. And there are some collaborations I've done that I just wanted to rip out my hair, and then I say yes again and like, why did I do this? Like, I knew it wasn't going to be something that was fun, but there are some that I've loved and they are really fun, and they brought cool opportunities for my students when I was in the classroom, or just me designing things. So yeah, just focusing on the things that I really do value in my business
I
is
love that. I love that. All right, we're going to end out this podcast with some really fun questions for you. So, what is your favorite podcast to listen to?
So I just finished the Scamanda podcast. Have you listened to that one?
I haven't even heard of it. What is it
It
about?
is so good. So it's like a true crime, but I am not like the murdery true crime person. Those give me nightmares. It's a true story about this woman who actually was in education, but she pretended to have cancer and scammed a bunch of people. But it's so well done, and like it was really cool, like hearing the education side of it too. It was fun. So I really liked that one. And I like listening to Well That's Good, the one that I talked about earlier. And I've listened to one with my husband called The Art of Manliness, which sounds like it would not be something I would listen to, but that one's actually really good too. So those are my top three.
I love it. I love it. Favorite way to relax?
Right now, it's just like spending time with my husband and our puppy, or I've been getting really into Procreate on my iPad. I'm terrible at it, but just trying something new has been really fun.
I love that. Favorite show to binge watch currently?
I feel like I like go through seasons of shows. So like I did watch Grey's and I liked that one. One of my favorites is Desperate Housewives. Yeah, I think those are my top two that I can sit down and just watch from beginning to end.
Love it. Love it. All right, you're handed a gift card to your favorite restaurant. Where are you going and what are you ordering?
Oh, that's a tough one. Probably Zupa's. I think it was just a Utah thing for a while, but they might have some other locations now. But it's like a cute little cafe. So they have a really yummy sandwich called a chicken pesto panini that I get every time. And they have a nuts about berry salad. So that's what I get every single time.
Aimee, what's next for you and your business?
We're just kind of taking it day by day. Right now, I've been focusing on third grade resources. So I would love to put more of those out there and then branch off into other grade levels in the future.
Where can listeners find you if they want to connect with you?
So I am on social media like we've talked about. Instagram, TikTok is at Aimee's Adventures, and I spell everything a little bit differently. So the adventures part has an E instead of an A because it's like education. And I spell my name uniquely too. So I'll just spell it. It's AIMEESEDVENTURES. And I also have my own website called shopedventures.com, and it's spelled with the E there too.
Love it. And we'll put all of those links inside of the show notes so people can find that and connect with you. Thanks so much for being here and for sharing about your TPT journey. It's really fun for me personally to hear about different people's paths to success on TPT and how that looks. It looks different for every single person.
It does, yeah.
But it also it helps to hear like what's working for someone and maybe what's not working. Like those things are really helpful. So thanks so much for being here and for sharing.
Thank you so much for having me. I've loved being here.
Thanks so much for being here. If you want to connect with Aimee or learn more about Aimee, you can find all of the links down inside of the description. If you've been thinking about joining Rebranded Teacher Academy, let me tell you, you need to go to the rebrandedteacher.com and join the waitlist, because we are going to be doing a backdoor kind of secret opening at the end of December December, early January, only for people who are on the wait list. So you want to make sure that if you've been thinking about getting in, you want to get in now, because I'm going to tell you guys, I'm going to go on maternity leave end of January, and I probably will not open RTA up for quite a while after that. So if you've been thinking about getting in, now is your chance. If you want access to monthly strategies and challenges to help you grow your TPT business in a way that's very purposeful and sustainable, if you want co-working sessions, if you want audits, if you want office hours, if you want a library of resources to help you grow your TPT business, RTA is where it's at an affordable monthly price. Make sure that you get on that wait list so that you do not miss that opening. Thanks so much for being here, you guys. I will see you right back here next week.